Hello YouTube, and welcome back to another video. This is a video response to one of my pals on YouTube, Mr. J, Sybersnake7. He just put up a video recently, sort of saying that he's not feeling modern gaming anymore, that he sort of fell out of love with it, specifically the current gen, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And I thought I would sort of voice my opinion, where I stand. I feel that it's not a straightforward an answer, because there are a lot of factors. If you ask me where I initially stand, I would say in the middle, and that means literally in the middle. And what I mean by that is that as many of you that that are subscribed to me, that watch my stuff on the regular, know that I'm very much an advocate of retro gaming. I mean, my name alone, Champion 2D, means that I champion 2D games. I highlight 2D games. I am a big fan of 2D gaming, and I've always stated that in my videos and what I put out there. But at the same time, I am a big fan of modern games. I don't own a PS4, I don't own an Xbox One. Those systems I can't really comment on too much because I don't own them. But I own a PS3. And I've said this before in the past, that I am a huge fan of the PlayStation 3. I think it's one of my favourite consoles of all time. Now, I'm going to elaborate on that in a little bit, but before I get to that, I do sort of want to explain what I mean by I fall in the middle. And what I mean by that is in terms of the time span of gaming, where it began sort of in the 70s to now, I literally fall slap bang in the middle. And by that I mean, I got into gaming really in the sort of mid to late 80s. I mean, this is not including, the little gaming watches and stuff like that. I'm talking about when I bought my first console, which my mother bought me my first console, to now. And there are a lot of systems that are around at the time that I either never got to play, I never got to try, or played very briefly. To which turn, a lot of people that have played those systems, that hold a lot of nostalgia for those systems, I can't get into them. I find them off-putting. So essentially what I'm saying is, anything that's before the NES, I can't get into. I find, this is just my opinion, but I just find they've aged really badly. I can't get with, like, say, the Atari systems, the stuff that had the one stick and one button joystick. I can't get with those sorts of games. And that's not to say there are of course a few exceptions of games that I have enjoyed that came out around that time. But the thing is, they don't count anymore, because there've been so many sort of revisions of those same titles. Like, to give you an example, Pac-Man. Pac-Man is a game that I very much enjoy, but it's been updated and revised so many times that to go back and play it on like an Atari is pointless. So the only people that really play on those systems are people that had those systems as a kid, and they're playing it, for nostalgic value, which is fine. That's cool, but it's not for me. Another system that I can't get on with in terms of retro is like the home computers. A lot of the times, like a lot of the 8-bit stuff, like the ZX Spectrum. I know I'm subscribed to a lot of people here that are big fans of the Spectrum, and a lot of it is based on nostalgia. But let's be honest now, if you've never played the Spectrum and you're playing it for the first time today, it's very hard to get into. I mean, I know there are a few people that probably would get into it, but most people wouldn't. I mean, I'm confident that I could convince a young person today to play an NES, and I'd be confident they would enjoy it. Like, I'd be confident they'd enjoy the Super Nintendo, Mega Drive, to an NES Master System. I'm confident I can get them to enjoy those systems. But a ZX Spectrum, I'm not too sure. I actually think that is mostly played by people for nostalgic reasons. They are not really systems that hold up today, let's be honest. But yeah, I'm from the NES Master System era, you know, Mega Drive, Super Nintendo, you know, and another system, even though I never played it as a kid, but I think it holds up, PC Engine, Turbo Graphics is another system that holds up. Now, I'm waffling a little bit, but the point I'm trying to make is there are retro stuff that's just a bit too retro for me that I can't get into. Now, so you see where I'm going with this. So yeah, so there's that. And of course, anything NES, Super Nintendo, Mega Drive, PlayStation, Saturn, and so on, up to today, it's what I like. And now, of course, if we go to the other end of the spectrum, we're on where we are now, which is PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I don't own a PlayStation 4 yet. And the reason why I don't own a PlayStation 4, I'm a big Sony man, that's why I'm bringing up PlayStation 4. But the reason why I don't own a PS4 right now is because I'm still enjoying the PlayStation 3. They're still releasing games for it. I'm very much enjoying what's being released. I've still got a backlog of games I still need to get through. So I'm in no rush to get a PlayStation 4. I will get one eventually, but I'm in no rush. There's not a lot of games that are out there at the moment that are really screaming for me to buy the system. You know, and the games I do want are a little bit further away, so I'm going to hold off for a little bit. Now, in terms of last gen, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, in my opinion, I actually think those systems are the last sort of, and this is bearing in mind, I don't know what's to come with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, because we're still very early in its life. So don't take this as scripture. I might change my mind further on down the line. But right now, as it stands, I feel the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 are the last sort of great consoles before we really sort of switch to this new age of where gaming is taking us. Now, I understand a lot of the grievances that people have had throughout the lifespan of the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. It's important to note that during their lifespans, it was an age of transition. It was the bring about of the indie developer. Online gaming really took off, you know, and with that came all these developers incorporating a lot of DLC and stuff like that. Now, I understand why people don't like DLC, and I'm the same. There are aspects of last generation that do piss me off, like a lot of people. You know, the constant updates, I understand, you know, but the thing is, there are ways to make things easier. I mean, for example, I bought a little while ago. I bought the Mass Effect trilogy on the PlayStation 3. Now, I haven't played any of those games yet, but I knew that each one would require a large install on the console. So rather than wait until the time I felt like I wanted to play it, I felt, well, you know, I might as well install it now when I'm not in the mood to play it. And then I know that I've gotten that out of the way. So when the time comes that I do want to play it, I know if there are any other install updates, it's not going to be as long as the initial one. So I get those out of the way. I've been with the PlayStation 3 long enough now to know that for a lot of these big games, it tends to be a requirement. So I know that before I get in the mood to play them, I'll just put them in the system, let them do their updating and uninstalling while I'm doing something else, so that I don't have to deal with it when it comes to the time that I want to play these games. So there are ways around some of these annoyances of more recent gaming life. You know, stuff that a lot of these younger kids, you know, they take for granted. That's just the way it is. I know a lot of us, we're not from that. We're used to just putting on a game and going, you know. But, you know, as time goes on, as naturally time progresses, games get more complicated. And I suppose that's just the way it is, you know. And you're going to have to bear with me, guys, because there is a lot to cover here. I'm trying not to sort of confuse you guys by sort of jumping back and forth. But essentially, yeah. So I digress. Talking about PlayStation 3, it is one of my favourite systems of all time. It is literally the last proper console. Um, and I find it difficult to hear people say, you know, oh, you know, all these games are the same, or all these games are too easy. And I don't agree with that. I think games are still very hard. I mean, anyone that says to me, oh, games are too easy, I can point a game to them and say, okay, complete this game on hard mode. I guarantee you wouldn't, because I can't do it. And I consider myself a pretty good game player, but some of these modern games are balls hard. So I don't know what people are talking about. I mean, there are a lot of hard games out there, and I'm not just talking about some of obscure tiles. I'm talking about pretty big tiles can be pretty tough. Um, playing God of War on its hard difficulty setting, it's balls hard. It's a very hard game, you know. And while I've never played this series, a lot of people say that the Dark Souls series is ridiculously hard. So there are games that are catered towards a hardcore demographic. And what I'll tell you, one of the things that I like about the PlayStation 3 so much is its variety in games. And this is the other thing that I don't like to hear from people is that, oh, there's just the same old, same old. Well, not to burst your bubble, but, if you want to really look back at the library of games back in the day, a lot of them were the same old, same old. I mean, how many platformers were on the Super Nintendo? I couldn't tell you the difference between one RPG to the next. It was made up of the same old genres over and over again. It's great to look back at these systems with rose-tinted glasses. But if you want to be real, if you really want to be honest, want to break it down. There was just as much crap on the old systems as there are on these new systems. It's never really changed. The only thing I can understand is, while some people don't like 3D gaming, they prefer 2D games, or they prefer the immediacy of 2D games, which is fine. But there are plenty of 2D games on current systems. You just don't know where they are. You just haven't really looked. On my channel, I have a few gameplay videos of 2D games on the PlayStation 3. Games like Blood Rain Betrayal or Hardcore Uprising. I don't think I've done a video for that one, but there's Hardcore Uprising, which was a spiritual successor to the Contra series. In fact, it's actually a prequel to Contra Hardcore on the Mega Drive. It's a prequel game to that. It's a 2D side-scrolling run-and-gun shooter that unfortunately was only released digitally on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. Now, yes, it is annoying. I wish that game had come out as a physical copy, and that is an aspect that I do hate about the modern era of gaming. There are a lot of great 2D games that are being released by indie developers that are 2D. Unfortunately, they don't really have the money for large distribution, so it's their only way of putting their games out there. It's a shame that not a lot of companies are thinking, well, let's bundle up a load of these games and release it physically as a compilation disc. I know the Xbox 360 has had that a few times, whereas the PS3 hasn't really had it. We've only had maybe once. We've had that Triple Flowers Journey, and there was another game that came out as a compilation disc. But not a lot of these games. Oh, DuckTales as well. DuckTales Remastered was released as a compilation disc. But we never got the Cast of Illusion remake as a physical disc, even though I think that game is well worth being released as a physical copy, as well as Hardcore Uprising, as well as Blood Rain Betrayal. These are all great games that were only released digitally, unfortunately, that should have been released physically. And that's really my one hang-up about modern games is that sometimes some great games don't get released physically, and I definitely understand some people that don't like that, and I'm definitely with you on that. But to actually say that that all the games being released are, require a long time to be played, I'm sorry, but that's not correct. I can argue with you constantly. I can pull up a game anytime you say, this game and this game, there's no quick pick up and play games. I would argue that fact. In fact, just off the top of my head, you know, first game that came to my mind that's available on the PlayStation 3, a game that probably a lot of people have ignored, is oh fucking hell, Under the Feet HD. Great shoot 'em up game. Then there's Dragon's Crown. It's a 2D side-scrolling beat 'em up. You know, I mean, these games are great to pick up and play. You know, and there are more. I mean, there are loads of 2D side-scrollers. You know, you've got 2D platformers. I mean, you've got Rayman Origins, Rayman Legends. These are all great pick up and play sort of games. You know, I mean, if you just want a quick fix, you know, I mean, we still have our old systems, but there are plenty of these games available today. I mean, they have to be longer though. I mean, back in the day, it was fine to have a game only last, you know, an hour, but you know, games cost a lot of money, so I can't see why anyone would complain that there's too much game for them. Like, that's crazy. Like, just give me more. That's what I want. Give me more. Give me more. I want, you know, I want more game. You know, so I'm happy that the games go on for 10 hours. You know, all right. Some people think, you know, I don't have the time, and I know a lot of people, a lot of good friends of mine on YouTube that just don't have the time to sit and play these games, and that's fair enough. But there are still loads of games available that are quick pick up and play. I can give you a list of PlayStation 3 games that don't require you to spend hours and hours, that are quick pick up and play games. You know, you just have to look. You just have to be aware of what's available. You know, it's not just, you know, it's not just God of War and Uncharted. Those are not the only games available for the system. There are loads of games. There are loads and loads and loads of games. A great variety of games. You know, I've got quite a few in my collection. You know, I will do a PS3 collection video to kind of show and talk about some of these games. But in the meantime, you know, I can tell you, take it from me, there are a lot of versatility, a lot of versatile games, a great variety of games on the PlayStation 3. Now, I'm sure it's the same for the Xbox 360, but I don't own an Xbox 360, so it's hard for me to talk about that. But I can tell you from a PlayStation 3 owner, there is plenty of variety of games. A lot of games that do cater for us older heads. Now, if you just like cartridge-based games, that's fine. You know, I mean, I know that within the YouTube community there is a little bit of a split. You know, there is the people that are strictly into retro. Then there are others that prefer modern games, and then there are people like myself that kind of fall in the middle. But I'm no less enthusiastic about retro games. You know, I'm from the era of the late 80s, early 90s. I'm primarily an arcade head. I grew up with the Sega, the Capcom, Konami, the golden age of arcade gaming. That's where I spent a ridiculous amount of time. You know, the SNK. Those were the companies that, for me, were familiar. Those were the ones that I spent back in the day. So I'm very much an advocate for those consoles and games and systems and whatever. You know, and I have, of course, you know, while I don't pick up for the NES, I do very much love the system, and I love seeing people pick up for the NES. And the same goes for the Master System. I primarily love the Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo. That's really where my passion lies. Because, you know, those were the times when where sort of I got a few more games. When I was in the earlier days, I was too young, didn't get that many games for the system, never really was able to explore the library. Whereas during the 16-bit era, I was able to explore the libraries a little bit more. So I'm a big fan of, you know, the 2D games, and I welcome new 2D games. I enjoy the old stuff. I have a lot of old stuff, but I also enjoy a lot of the new stuff as well. Now, I can definitely understand where Jay is coming from, but I'm not convinced. I think Jay, deep down, still likes modern games. I mean, he said it himself in his video. You know, he's still going to pick up for it. He's not selling off his PlayStation 4. You know, I feel that he's just not really content with what's been available now. But again, I have to refresh people's memories. PlayStation, Sony traditionally have always been slow off the mark. PlayStation 2, if you guys remember, was very slow off the mark. Didn't have a lot of good games in the beginning. But, you know, I only have to look at the library now to see where it's gone. You know, the PlayStation 3 was the same. It was slow off the mark. You know, I didn't even get a PlayStation 3 until its second year, because I wasn't really convinced of its library in the beginning. So you just got to let some of these consoles time to warm up. But here is where the difference comes. And like I was saying before, the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 has been a transitional period where games developers have been introducing a lot more online content. And naturally, with the current gen of systems, it's only going to go further. And admittedly, that does worry me. And one thing I kind of do agree with Jay, but again, you know, my opinion could change later on down the line once I know more. But as it stands, I do think that the PlayStation 4 will probably be the last console that I pick up, because if it does sort of all go digitally in the future, that might taint my love of games, at least for the modern stuff. And do you know what? And I'm a fan of progress, but there are certain things that I do like to hold on to. You know, it's like for me, for example, on the one hand, I stream a lot of movies and TV shows. You know, I'm subscribed to Amazon Prime and Netflix, and I watch a lot of stuff digitally. But at the same time, I do have a decent library of films and TV shows. But there's just so much stuff out there. It's just hard for me to buy it all. I can't afford to buy it all. So having an option like Netflix and Amazon Prime is a great way for me to catch up on a lot of stuff that I might not get around to buying. But on the other hand, I don't like MP3s. I like MP3 players. I like, you know, burning my music onto my laptop and then transferring it over to my MP3 player. That's great. I don't mind doing that. But I don't like buying digital music. I like to purchase CDs. I have a massive CD collection. Admittedly, I've slowed down, but I still pick up CDs. You know, I still buy CDs. And I don't like the digital age that's happening in music. So, you know, while I may feel one thing for one specific pastime, I may not necessarily feel the same with regards to another pastime. And I feel that if gaming goes the way of music, then it will very much hinder my love for the modern stuff. But in terms of some of the other things that people have brought up, and I was reading the comments on Jay's video, just some of the stuff that people have been saying, and a lot of these comments come from people that I'm sub to, that I consider friends, but I just don't agree with. And I think a lot of it is, some of it is, I can understand why some people can't get into some of these big long games. You know, they're busy, they've got responsibilities, they don't have time to sit down and spend, you know, an hour on the game. They just want a quick 15-minute, 20-minute blast, you know, on a shoot 'em up or a fighter. And if that's the case, then that's fair enough. I can't argue with that. You know, I'm an adult as well. I know it's hard to believe, but I'm a grown up, and you know, we do have responsibilities. I mean, even when at the moment I'm only working part-time, but when I was working full-time, you know, it's really hard to get into some of these long games. You know, I used to try and sneak it in every so often, and I did get frustrated that it took a while to really get into the game. You know, before I would make any real progress, I'd have to spend at least 2 hours before I would make any real progress in the game. And sometimes you just don't have the 2 hours to spare, and that's fair enough. If your life is like that, then I'm not going to argue with that. But what I will say though is, don't tell me that there are no quick games, those quick pick up and play games on modern systems, because I can tell you right now that's not the case. There are loads. So that argument doesn't really connect with I don't like modern games. That's more of, you know, most modern games are just, you know, there's just too much to them that I don't have the time to get into them. But there are plenty, and I mean plenty, of quick pick up and play games on last gen systems. I can't speak for the PlayStation 4, but there are plenty of games that are available on physical copies, mind you, because I know there are loads online, but there are great games that are available as physical copies on the PlayStation 3, and I can at least say that. What else is there to say? I think I've pretty much covered all of it, but just to reiterate very quickly and put it all into bullet points, I fall in the middle. I think there are some retro stuff that I can't get into. Sorry about that. Noise. So you've got, the stuff that came out way before I can't get into. And there are, of course, stuff coming out in the future that does worry me. But I'm very much a gamer. I love gaming in all its formats. I love cinematic games. Games like Uncharted, The Last of Us. I love them. And speaking of Uncharted, this is another thing that Jay brought up. And I've got a response to what he said. And I don't think Jay considered this when he made this video. But, The Last of Us Remastered that's coming out on the PlayStation 3. And I think it was FXO Vegeta, he brought it up in the comments below on Jay's video. He did say this as well. And that is that the reason why Sony decided to probably bring out, The Last of Us Remastered for the PlayStation 4 is that, statistically speaking, a lot of people that didn't own a PlayStation 3 have gone and bought a PlayStation 4. That includes former Xbox owners and people that never owned a console before. They've gone out and bought a PlayStation 4. And, Sony are deservedly so very proud of The Last of Us. It was a fantastic game. And it does seem like a shame that some of these people wouldn't get a chance to experience that game. So I think it's great that they re-released it on the PlayStation 4 so that a lot of these people can play the game. So Jay, what I'm really saying is that you're not really the target audience for The Last of Us Remastered. It's really for a lot of these people that never got to try out the game in the first place. And I think that's great. I think the game deserves a much wider audience. It really was a fantastic game. I very much enjoyed it. I've completed it like 3 times. And I think really great games, great standout games, I think they should be remembered. And just the same way I feel like they should always re-release, the classic Super Mario Brothers games, or if they re-release the classic Contra games, the classic Castlevania games, the same applies for some of the great modern games. I think people should remember them as time goes on, and that's just personally how I feel. So that's it, guys. I'm going to leave it there because it is one of those really long answers that will take forever, and I can go on and on and on about it. So I'm just going to choose to leave it here. Thank you very much to Jay, Sybersnake7, for putting the question out to the community. It was great to get my opinion across. I'll be interested to hear what you guys think. You don't have to agree with me, guys. It's fair enough. I just always think that I'm a gamer at heart. I love games, from retro to modern. But then at the same time, it's important to not get caught up everyone looks at the old stuff with rose tinted glasses, and I just want people to realise that, as great as we love the old stuff, let's not blind ourselves to the fact that a lot of crap was released in those days, just as much as a lot of crap is released today. It really is. We mostly remember the gems. We tend to forget the really crap stuff, but it's never really changed. In terms of how developers have sort of done their business practices today, has definitely been shady. Capcom being a prime example. Although, Capcom have really been ripping us off for years. I mean, this is nothing new. I mean, the template has changed, but they've been doing the same old thing. I mean, even back in the 16-bit era, how many versions of Street Fighter 2 came out during the 16-bit? It's the same old shit. I mean, today they released Street Fighter 4, then it was Super Street Fighter 4, then it was Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition, now we're getting Ultra Street Fighter 4. you know, it's not really changed. They did the same thing back in the days, you know. So all the DLC stuff, you know, essentially I agree. You know, I don't like where if it all becomes sort of digital games. But in terms of talking about the PlayStation 4, I think it's still too early to really make any snap judgments. You know, let's wait and see. You know, PlayStation 4 is still, you know, warming up. It's still building up. When it hits its stride in a year or two, then we'll talk about, you know, where developers are going. But anyway, I'm leaving it there. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. Of course, would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think. Don't worry, guys, you don't have to agree with me. Please, if you want to argue a point against anything I've said, please list it in the comment below. There's no real right or wrong answers here. It's just perspective, and the focus of my video was just trying to put things to perspective. That is all. So that's it, guys. I'll be back very soon. Take cares. Bye bye.